Now to the other election battle, this one in South Asia. Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina shrugged off accusations that last Sunday's elections were illegitimate. This in spite of a boycott of the voting by 18 opposition parties, including the large Bangladesh Nationalist Party.
I tried my best, I told you. I offer ministry, I offer to share power with our opposition. I have done as much as I can do, but they didn't respond. If they realize that they made a mistake not participating in the election, perhaps then they may come forward.
The violence and uncertainty around the elections is hurting Bangladesh's vital garment exports. One of the biggest players in the $22 billion garment industry says orders have dropped by half in the last quarter. So what's behind the boycott and why the violence? To explain, we have Ali Riaz, professor and chair of the Department of Politics and Government at Illinois State University. Professor Riaz has written extensively about politics in his homeland, Bangladesh. He's joining us on Skype. Well, let's talk about the boycott. What brought it on? Is it driven by competition for the spoils of office, or does the argument go beyond that?
There is an argument beyond that. As a matter of fact, primarily the opposition was demanding that there should be a caretaker government which would oversee the election. And Bangladesh had that kind of system until recently. In 2011, this government, when they came into power in 2009, in 2011, they have changed the constitution, amended the constitution to remove that provisions that the elections would be overseen by a caretaker government. So opposition's demand primarily was that to have an election under the caretaker regime. Why? Because they thought, and it is their argument, that if the election is held under an incumbent government, that would mean that the election would be influenced because the administration would work in favor of the incumbent government.
Is the Awami League representative of certain classes in the country, and does the BNP draw support from other groups who have different visions of Bangladesh's future?
Interestingly enough, I would not say that they draw support from different groups. In fact, if you look at the election results, and over the years, they have alternated in power, their support base is pretty much identical, though. You know, they have grassroots organization in the rural areas, also have support from the middle class and the urban people. The difference in large measure is, I would say, it's a matter of legacies.
Legacies.
These two political parties are intrinsically tied to two historical figures of Bangladeshi politics. The founder leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and also Ziaur Rahman, who was a military ruler, who came into power, but also made an enormous influence on the politics in general. So this is number one, that their legacies are the ones which differentiate between these two. One other element in current situation, what we would see, the difference is how to conduct the election. BNP, which previously was reluctant to have a caretaker government, were forced into due to street agitation, which was led by Awami League, interestingly enough. Now, Awami League doesn't want that kind of a situation, arguing making the same arguments what BNP made in 1996. Now, what are the other differences? One other immediate difference is in regard to the war crimes trial. The ongoing war crime trials, the way Awami League is handling it, BNP has some reservation in regard to that, and unfortunately they haven't made it very clear as to what do they want.
And so by war crimes trials, you're referring to the abuses that happened during the 1971 independence war against Pakistan?
Absolutely. In 1971, heinous crimes were committed, genocide was committed, and what happened is there are a number of people who have collaborated with the Pakistani regime and the Pakistani military. They have committed crimes against humanity, and those are the ones who are now being tried. And there is a war crime trial tribunal that has started since this government came into power.
The army has intervened before. Where does it stand now in this crisis?
This would be a little bit speculative from my part, but I don't think the army is inclined at this point to step into the politics, particularly the current political impasse. I don't think they are going to intervene at this moment, or at least they're inclined. As an institution, they would rather like to see this issue be resolved by the politicians.
Are you confident at all that the politicians can solve this crisis?
There's no other way. This has to be resolved within the Bangladeshi community. The Bangladeshi politicians will have to do it. There is no other way than dialogue and having conversation. Both parties, that is the current government, and particularly after this election, which I completely insist on one point, that the lack of moral legitimacy. Yes, if you look at the constitution, if you look at the laws, yes, it is a legitimate election despite the fact there is a very low turnout. But there is a lack of moral legitimacy to rule the country with such low support. So the government needs to step up and talk to the opposition. Opposition will have to give up something. It is not going to happen that you are going to, in any negotiation, you're not going to get everything out of it. So both parties need to sit and work it out. This is called leadership. And that is, they will have to demonstrate that they are leaders beyond their parties. They're leaders of the country. Without that, Bangladesh, the potential Bangladesh has, it would be lost because it is not going to stay there for long. No opportunities stay there for long. It is a difficult economic situation. World is changing. It is the moment. If you lose the moment, you may lose it forever.
Okay, well, let's hope the politicians do seize the moment. Thank you, Ali Riaz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Professor Riaz is at Illinois State University and is a specialist in Bangladeshi politics and society. Learn more about him on our experts page.
Now on U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.